Brand new motorcycles, 0 miles, untouched and already dying. From coast to coast, dealerships are drowning in machines they can't sell. Sport bikes, cruisers, adventure bikes, all built to roar and now rotting in silence. Flat tires, fading paint, price tags in free fall. So here's the question. What happens when a motorcycle sits too long? Who pays the price? And how far will dealers go to make these bikes disappear? The forgotten rows. Hundreds of bikes, brand new and untouched, rotting under fluorescent lights. Walk into certain motorcycle dealerships across America, and the first thing you might notice isn't the gleam of chrome or the smell of new tires. It's the stillness. Rows of motorcycles lined up like showroom soldiers, engines that have never roared to life, tires that have never touched asphalt, each one covered in a thin layer of dust. This isn't the sight of a booming business. It's the silent image of an inventory crisis. So why aren't they moving? Part of the answer is shifting consumer demand. Another part is financing challenges and rising interest rates. But the real shock comes from how quickly a valuable machine transforms into a burden. The longer these bikes sit, the harder they are to sell. The plastic wrapping starts to yellow. The batteries drain. The tires begin to deflate. A bike meant to thrill becomes a sculpture of missed opportunity. And what happens to these forgotten rows? Some get tucked behind service bays, others are marked down quietly, labeled as special inventory. But most remain exactly where they are, parked, polished, but painfully unmoved. And behind every one of those bikes is a dealer who isn't just losing space, they're losing money. But the real problem? These bikes aren't paid for, they're borrowed. Stick around. What happens next might change how you see every dealership lot. And if you're into this kind of deep dive, hit subscribe. Floor plan finance. The average buyer walking into a showroom assumes the bikes on the floor belong to the dealership. They imagine the store owns its inventory outright, waiting patiently for the right buyer to roll in. That assumption couldn't be further from the truth. Most motorcycles on display aren't owned by the dealership. They're financed. Welcome to the world of floor plan financing. Here's how it works. When a dealership receives a shipment of new motorcycles from a manufacturer, they're not paying for those bikes out of pocket. They take out loans, sometimes dozens at a time, to secure the inventory. These short-term loans, known as floor plans, allow dealers to keep their showroom stocked. But there's a catch. The meter starts running the moment those bikes roll off the truck. Dealers caught in this trap may start cutting prices aggressively, even if it means losing money, just to stop the bleeding. But that's not always enough. Aging inventory tanks a dealer's credit score. It limits their ability to order next season's hot models. It puts pressure on sales teams and erodes relationships with manufacturers. And the moment that interest outruns the value, that's when the clock starts ticking and dealers start slashing more than prices. They slash pride. The price slashing game. It begins with a quiet markdown, a few $100s off here, a holiday sale there. But behind the glass windows of American motorcycle dealerships, a brutal reality is unfolding. Bikes that once stood as proud centerpieces are now financial landmines, and dealers are running out of time and dignity. As floor plan interest stacks up and new inventory continues arriving regardless of what's sold, dealership managers are pushed into a corner. The solution is obvious, if painful. Cut the price. Cut deep. And cut fast. That is how a $15,000 motorcycle becomes an $11,000 panic button. It is not about slow depreciation, it is about the optics of desperation. Every markdown whispers something to the consumer. This bike did not sell. Maybe it is not worth full price. Maybe no one wants it. And that perception can be fatal, not just for the model, but for the dealership's reputation. So, they slash. The Yamaha MT-07 might drop from $9,500 to under $8,000 in one weekend. Touring bikes from Harley Davidson see $3,000 incentives stacked on top of dealer markdowns. Even the big names like BMW are not immune. A model once considered flagship status now comes bundled with free gear, extended warranties, and cashback credits just to get people through the door. Manufacturers are fully aware of what is happening. They often participate in the desperation, offering rebate programs that subsidize price cuts from the factory. Harley Davidson might quietly back a 0% financing plan on a bike they know will be discontinued next season. Kawasaki may issue a 5-year extended warranty as a way of adding value without admitting that the MSRP was too high in the first place. These discount layers pile up into a psychological game. From the outside, the deal looks tempting. Free helmet, free jacket, maintenance credits, 0% interest, and thousands off the sticker price. That is more than a bargain, it is a plea. A cry for inventory relief disguised as a rider's opportunity. And that leads to the worst scenario for dealers, the moment when price cuts no longer work. When even an $11,000 bike priced down from $15,000 does not move, panic turns into reinvention. And when that fails, the bikes are sent to their final stop, where hope goes to die. The auction guillotine. Auctions are where pride goes to disappear. When a dealership exhausts every sales tool, markdowns, rebranding, regional swaps, and still cannot offload a motorcycle, they make the final, painful call: send it to auction. It is not a glamorous end. It is not even profitable. But it is necessary. There are two main types of auctions in the motorcycle industry. Closed auctions are franchise-specific events restricted to authorized dealers of the same brand. Yamaha, for instance, might hold a dealer-only liquidation where overstock can be redistributed internally. These events keep pricing floors relatively high and protect brand reputation from public markdown visibility. But most motorcycles end up in open auctions, the Wild West of wholesale liquidation. At places like Mannheim, the largest vehicle auction house in North America, bikes that sat unsold for over a year are rolled into grim warehouse bays and sold to the highest bidder. That bidder could be a used bike wholesaler, a rental fleet manager, a repair shop, or even an overseas buyer. The prices? Brutal. A Harley Davidson that was listed at $19,000 might go for $9,000. A BMW Adventure model might be picked up for under half its MSRP. There are no guarantees, no floor protections, and no second chances. It is a one-way trip. Dealers hate sending bikes to auction, but sometimes the math is simpler than the shame. A $5,000 loss on an auctioned motorcycle can clear a floor plan loan, free up space, and reset the balance sheet. Better to take the hit and move on than to bleed out slowly while waiting for a buyer who never comes. But while these auctions mark the end for many motorcycles, they also mark the beginning of something else. Because in the shadows of liquidation, a new kind of rider is starting to hunt. For deals, for flips, and for opportunities the industry never meant to offer. But while bikes are dying in back rooms, buyers are starting to smell opportunity. The buyer's revenge. If you know the signs, you can buy a new bike for used bike money. That might sound like an exaggeration, but in today's motorcycle market, it's a cold, calculated truth. The collapse of dealership pricing power has opened the floodgates for savvy consumers who know how to read desperation. And with unsold motorcycles clogging showrooms across America, the balance of power has flipped. For the first time in decades, buyers are in complete control. Walk into a dealership today and you'll feel it. The energy has changed. Sales staff aren't just offering deals, they're pleading. A bike that was listed at $15,000 just a few months ago might now be going for $12,000 with 0% financing and free gear thrown in. Why? Because the longer that machine sits, the more it costs the dealership. Every day it goes unsold is another day of paying floor plan interest, insurance premiums, and storage fees. Buyers who understand this pressure can push hard and often walk away with a deal that would have been unthinkable in years past. Then there's timing. The best deals often appear near the end of the quarter when dealerships are scrambling to hit sales targets. Pair that with a poorly selling model like an overstocked adventure bike or a premium cruiser in an urban market, and you've got a recipe for serious savings. In this environment, every price tag is negotiable, every incentive is stackable, and every minute that bike sits makes your offer look more reasonable. Buyers are also getting creative. They're cross-shopping nationally, leveraging online listings, calling out-of-state dealers, and even initiating bidding wars between franchises. Tools like CycleTrader and Facebook Marketplace have become strategic weapons. A buyer in Nevada can pit two Harley dealerships against each other, one in Utah, one in Arizona, and let them fight over who wants to offload inventory more. This is not just about saving money, it's about flipping the script. For years, the dealership model thrived on asymmetric information. Salespeople had the upper hand. Now, with digital tools, consumer forums, and transparent pricing, that dynamic is gone. And as dealership margins shrink, the last thing they want is a buyer who knows more than they do. But this golden era of buyer power won't last forever. As manufacturers begin to tighten production and overstock begins to clear, pricing will eventually stabilize. That means the window to score a new bike for a used price is closing. The smartest buyers are making their moves now, because once this market resets, the advantage swings right back to the sellers. But what if you could ride a brand new bike without buying it at all? Subscription riders. Why buy a motorcycle when you can stream one? It sounds like science fiction or a bad startup pitch, but it's real and it's growing. As traditional motorcycle ownership begins to fracture under the pressure of price, risk, and changing lifestyles, a new model is emerging: subscription riding. It's Netflix for bikes, and it's about to rewrite the rules. Subscription riding works like this. You pay a flat monthly fee, and in return you get access to a motorcycle, maintenance, insurance, and the freedom to swap it out when you're ready for something new. Companies like Twisted Road and RiderShare are leading the charge, with dealership-backed programs now entering the scene. For younger riders, urban commuters, and those wary of long-term financial commitments, this model is more than appealing. It's revolutionary. Imagine having a sport bike in the summer, an adventure bike for your fall trip, and a touring model for the spring, all without loans, down payments, or resale headaches. For many, the flexibility alone is worth the premium. It turns a traditionally static asset into a dynamic experience. You don't buy a bike, you access a lifestyle, and that access solves a core problem: commitment fatigue. In a world where car leases, rent-anything platforms, and gig economy flexibility are the norm, locking into a 5-year motorcycle loan feels archaic. Subscription models remove friction. There's no haggling, no financing office, no complex trade-in. Just ride, return, repeat. This trend is also a tactical response to the glut of unsold inventory. Instead of discounting bikes to oblivion, some manufacturers are reallocating them into subscription fleets. That way, the bikes still generate monthly revenue without tanking resale values. For dealerships, it's a way to keep stock moving and mechanics busy. For consumers, it's a path to ride something fresh without drowning in paperwork. But subscription riding isn't just a novelty, it's an economic shift. It mirrors the way software, movies, and even housing have moved away from ownership toward access. For the motorcycle industry, this could mean fewer long-term buyers, but more consistent riders. It's not about selling bikes anymore. It's about selling rides. Still, not everyone is ready to let go of the old ways. Many dealerships and riders are clinging to the traditional model, unsure of what these new structures mean. But while they hesitate, others are already adapting, and the cracks in the old foundation are starting to show. The service bay is full, but the jobs are disappearing. Wrenches and wages. The service bay is full, but the jobs are disappearing. At first glance, that doesn't make sense. More bikes on showroom floors should mean more maintenance, right? But in reality, the glut of unsold motorcycles is turning service departments into ghost towns and putting dealership staff on the edge of financial collapse. For decades, service technicians were the backbone of every dealership. While sales departments rode the waves of market fluctuation, the service team was steady. Oil changes, warranty repairs, tire replacements, those jobs never stopped. But now as inventory sits unsold, foot traffic dries up, and cash flow gets choked, service departments are being gutted. Sales reps are faring no better. Commissions vanish when bikes don't sell. Incentives disappear. The pressure mounts, but the paychecks shrink. And all the while, they're left explaining to customers why a 2022 model is still brand new in 2024 and why the price has dropped by $3,000 since last year. These are not just workers. They're riders, enthusiasts, and community members. They host demo days, organize rides, and keep the culture alive. But now their loyalty is being tested. As dealerships cut hours and lay off longtime staff, the very people who kept the doors open are being pushed out. It's a quiet crisis, and it's largely invisible to the average rider. But behind every unsold motorcycle is a tech who hasn't hit their quota, a manager who can't make payroll, and a service bay that echoes with silence. The human cost of overproduction isn't just dollars and cents, it's broken careers and fading dreams. And yet, some riders are using this collapse to build something entirely new. The new motorcycle hustle. Some riders see deals, others see dollar signs. As the motorcycle market stumbles, a new class of entrepreneurs is rising from the wreckage. They're flippers, resellers, arbitrage specialists, people who understand that where most see decline, there's opportunity. And they're turning the industry's chaos into profit. The hustle is simple. Buy low, sell smart. A flipper might pick up a brand new but aging motorcycle at a deep discount, add minimal upgrades, and relist it privately for a few $1,000s more. With dealer desperation at an all-time high, margins like that are now possible, even for everyday riders willing to get their hands a little dirty. Others are building micro-fleets. Using discounted motorcycles as rental units, some riders are launching their own subscription light services on platforms like Riders Share or Twisted Road. One bike becomes a passive income source. 2 or 3, that's a business. Then there are the import-export arbitrageurs. A model that's stale in Kansas might be gold in Colombia. Savvy hustlers are buying unsold bikes and flipping them overseas, navigating shipping costs and currency gaps to make 4-figure profits. It's risky, it's complicated, but for the right operator, it's incredibly rewarding. This new motorcycle economy is decentralized, fast-moving, and often invisible to OEMs and traditional dealers. It's run out of garages, storage units, and Discord groups. But it's growing. Riders are no longer just enthusiasts, they're entrepreneurs. In forums and Facebook groups, stories abound of riders flipping their way into dream bikes. Start with a discounted cruiser, trade up twice, and land a brand new touring machine for pennies on the dollar. These aren't fantasy tales. They're real strategies, born from a market that lost its footing and gave power back to the streets. But for the traditional dealership model, this isn't just disruption, it's extinction. Because when riders start writing the rules and profiting from the chaos, the old guard won't just have to adjust. They'll have to survive. And that fight is just beginning. The fall of the dealership empire. For over a century, the motorcycle dealership stood as a fixture of American towns and cities. It was a local landmark, a gathering place for gearheads and dreamers, a cultural node where young riders imagined their first machine and veterans came to trade up. But now, that same institution is cracking at the foundation. Not because riders stopped caring about motorcycles, but because the system built to sell them no longer fits the world we live in. Across the United States, independent dealerships are closing their doors at a rate not seen since the financial collapse of 2008. Consolidation is sweeping through the industry like wildfire. Large chains are swallowing smaller, family-owned shops. Private equity groups are buying up regional players. Meanwhile, manufacturers are quietly reducing dealer counts, tightening inventory allocations, and shifting resources toward direct-to-consumer models. The signs of collapse are everywhere. In the past 3 years alone, over 400 motorcycle dealerships have closed across North America. Those that remain are increasingly pressured to carry fewer brands, follow stricter sales quotas, and front more costs on their own. Some have been dropped entirely by manufacturers looking to streamline their networks. Others were forced out by changing real estate markets, rising interest rates, or dwindling foot traffic. And at the center of this slow-motion implosion is a more existential threat: the internet. The rise of e-commerce has fundamentally altered how people buy vehicles. Riders now browse inventory online, compare prices across states, and negotiate deals without ever stepping foot in a showroom. Digital-first platforms like RumbleOn, RevZilla's new buyer tools, and peer-to-peer resale markets are eroding the core value proposition of the dealership, being the gatekeeper between rider and machine. Dealers are fighting back, but the tools they once relied on no longer work. The test ride? Fewer buyers care. The in-person haggling? It's been replaced by email quotes and financing calculators. Even the showroom itself, once a shrine to chrome and horsepower, is increasingly viewed as an expensive liability. Some brands, especially electric startups, are moving toward order direct, deliver-to-door sales models. Others are cutting back drastically on floor stock, instead offering digital showrooms with real-time factory inventory. For the old guard of the motorcycle industry, this shift is nothing short of catastrophic. Legacy dealerships were built on a model of physical presence, human relationships, and long-term community trust. But in an era defined by speed, convenience, and cost comparison, nostalgia cannot pay the rent. Yet in this collapse, something is stirring. A new energy, a new culture, something rising from the ashes of the old. And it does not look like a traditional dealership at all. But while the empire falls, a new breed of rider builders is reviving the soul of the machine in ways no corporate strategy ever could. The Second Life machines. What do you do with a motorcycle that no one wanted to buy? For the traditional dealership, it becomes an accounting loss, a liability to offload at auction or bury under markdowns. But for a growing number of riders, creators, and artists, that failed machine is something else entirely. A blank canvas. Across the country, a vibrant subculture of builders and restorers is breathing new life into bikes that were once considered unsellable. These are the wrench warriors, the garage savants, the YouTubers and indie mechanics who see beauty where others see burden. And they are doing more than rebuilding machines. They are redefining what a motorcycle means in the 21st century. Some of these bikes are rescued from dealership auctions. Others are bought at deep discounts, salvaged from parts yards, or acquired in regional swaps. Many are older model years, passed over by showroom buyers because of outdated tech or unfashionable styling. But in the hands of a skilled builder, those imperfections become a playground. Online platforms like YouTube and Instagram are filled with videos of these transformations. A 2022 Harley that sat unsold for 18 months becomes a stripped-down, cafe-styled masterpiece with a solo seat, custom tank, and hand-fabricated exhaust. A leftover Yamaha naked bike gets turned into a street tracker with knobby tires and flat bars. What once collected dust under showroom lights now earns millions of views and inspires riders around the world. Even more powerful are the stories behind the builds. For some, restoring a motorcycle is personal, a way to reconnect with a lost parent, a way to overcome mental health struggles, a way to create something tangible in an increasingly digital world. These builders aren't chasing profit, they're chasing purpose, and they're building communities along the way. Events like the One Moto Show in Portland, the Hand-Built Show in Austin, and local bike nights are becoming gathering grounds for this Second Life movement. Riders show off their builds, trade techniques, swap parts, and celebrate the culture of craftsmanship over consumerism. Here, it doesn't matter if your bike was a showroom reject. What matters is what you turned it into. This cultural shift is important. It represents a return to the roots of motorcycling: rebellion, customization, individualism, but it also reflects something deeper, a rejection of mass-market uniformity. Riders are no longer content to be sold to. They want to make, to shape, to resurrect. And in doing so, they're proving that the motorcycle isn't just a product, it's a medium. And despite all the losses, despite the closures, layoffs, and unsold inventory, something sacred about motorcycles still endures. The ride lives on. In the end, every motorcycle tells a story. even the ones that never sold, even the ones forgotten in storage rooms or buried behind newer models, even the ones that went to auction, their dreams discounted. Because a motorcycle is not just metal and rubber, it's potential, it's memory, it's motion, waiting to be awakened. That dusty sport bike sitting on the back of a dealer lot might one day carry a rider across the Rockies. That leftover cruiser, ignored for 2 years, might become someone's first step toward freedom. That discontinued model, abandoned at auction, might become a father-daughter project in a garage filled with old tools and new laughter. The industry may obsess over sales numbers, inventory counts, and quarterly projections, but riders don't ride for margins. They ride for meaning. And that's what gives the motorcycle its enduring power. It can survive collapse. It can survive commodification. Because no matter how long a bike waits, all it takes is one person to see it, to choose it, and everything changes. In this way, motorcycles are different from cars or phones or gadgets. They are not tools. They are companions. They are chapters in human lives. And while the dealership model may fall and the manufacturers may pivot and the market may stumble, the ride goes on. So the next time you pass a showroom and see a row of forgotten bikes behind the glass, do not look away. Look closer. You might be looking at someone's future, someone's freedom, someone's story waiting to begin. And that's the final twist in this tale. So the next time you see a showroom bike gathering dust, ask yourself, is that failure or freedom waiting? Every bike tells a story. And now we want to hear yours. Have you seen dealership rows that never moved, scored an unbelievable deal? Or maybe you rescued a forgotten machine and gave it new life? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more deep dives into the machines, the market, and the myths of motorcycling, hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.